Hello everyone, welcome to Linux Solution channel. In this video, we're going to talk about how to install a virtual machine, which we will use in our next session when we start learning and using Grafana. This video is not about in very detail, for example, how virtual machine works or how its architectures look like. It's more like how to get it up and running so that we start using it. We will cover those topics in later in our future sessions, but for now we will start looking some of the open source virtual machine software which we can use. So as you can see, I have already wrote here. So if I do a Google search, now you can see like there are so many open source virtual machines tools available, and most of you may have heard, for example, VirtualBox, KVM, VMware, definitely a lot people use for Windows. Vagrant also very powerful, and actually there are much more. But in our case, and especially we want to make it as easy as possible, so I will recommend to use VirtualBox. VirtualBox is created by Oracle, and it is really easy to install and configure, and really easy to run any virtual machine like Linux or Windows, etc. So we will install VirtualBox. So let's go to their official website. So this is their official website. They have really nice section of documentation, which is for both end user and technical documentation. They also have a community to ask questions, and this is really useful if you run into some problems or want to create some your own plugin. But for now, we will check the downloads, and I am actually have already installed VirtualBox on my Linux machine. As you can see here that I have some Kubernetes collector. I even created some more, but we will create a CentOS machine for our this session. Um, also, I do use KVM a lot as well, where I use mostly Docker and other test stuff. Now, KVM is really powerful. However, it is a little bit tricky to install it, especially depends on the operating system, because you may have to give some more permissions and adjust some more configuration to make it working. So let's close this and let's see how to install VirtualBox. So for Windows, it's pretty easy. As you can see, it gives a Windows exe file if you want to install VirtualBox on Windows, and just click install. For Linux, if I, for example, want to use this on CentOS 8, which I have actually, so I can show you. So I'm using CentOS Stream Release 8, and this is the command get etc Red Hat release. It will work on any RPM based distribution, and it will tell you the distribution name. So this is also very useful. So I click here, and it will start downloading the package. Uh, Once the package is downloaded, uh, we can use the DNF command. So basically, this will how it will look like. So if I go to uh, yeah, so I have actually multiple packages here. So what I need to use is the latest one. So that will be um, this one. And if I press enter, uh, it will start the installer and ask me. Although I have already installed it, so I will not going to do it. I may have a little bit different version, and having to VirtualBox does not make sense, as it will do conflicts and create more problems. So for now, I will press no, but in your case you have to press yes and it will start installation. So once this is installed, the next thing we need is to depends on your use case. So need to find an ISO image which will be run on the virtual machine. So the best and the easiest way is to search, for example, if I want to run CentOS virtual machine. So I will go to CentOS uh, uh, and I go to their official website, and I can download the packages here using it depends on the architecture. So it's normally nowadays it's x86-64, and I can download the uh, ISO image from here. Yeah. In our case, I do have already ISO image. So what I will do next is I will create a new virtual machine. So I will create new, and I will name this machine as CentOS Grafana, and this is my folder home Usman VirtualBox VM, and I will select an ISO image. I'm using CentOS 7, which is the minimal ISO image. Please keep in mind that CentOS 7 is no longer supported, it's end of life. However, I'm using it only to show for a demo, and it is pretty lightweight, because if I need to download CentOS 8 or something else, it's very big. But CentOS 7 is really fine for testing or debugging purpose for your if you are testing it internally or debugging something. And this is what we're gonna do when we do things in our next session. Um, so that's fine. Now what happened is that as soon if you see that I type CentOS and it detect the type as Linux and version as Red Hat 64. This is a good feature of VirtualBox as it detects things automatically. I click next. Then it is asking for a username and password. So let's give same VBox user as password as well. So VBox user. Yeah, looks good. Hostname also fine. We leave it as it is. Memory 204, basically 2 GB of memory and 1 CPU. This is also fine. Looks good. And we can adjust the disk space, so we don't need depends. I do have enough space, but I also feel like for demo purpose or for our case we probably need 10 GB is more than enough. So here we go. Next is it gives a complete summary, whatever we have defined and what is already defined. You can view it before clicking finish, and once we click finish, we have now created this machine, but we need to start it. So now we click start. It is asking for ISO image path. Let's select this, mount and retry boot. This is very normal in VirtualBox. Basically, it is asking for us to capture the click, and if we need to escape our mouse pointer, we simply press the right click as it defined here on the keyboard, and we can get exit of this window. So we now select install CentOS 8. Now we have to select the language, so let's keep it English. We click continue, and we need to set date and time. So I'm in Germany, so I will select Berlin as the closest time zone, and I will change my keyboard to my local one. So I'm using a German keyboard. I will select German, add, and will remove English. Now this may look small, but it is really handy because if you are using like a different keyboard setup other than English one, then your keystrokes may look different or appear different. If you're typing some characters, like instead of Y, it will show Z or Z instead of Y, and this is very common in German keyboards. So this is helpful option to set the keyboard layout. Now it is already selected. The last thing we need is to set up the network. It will automatically detect the IP address. So now we have an IP, and this is good. If we want, we can configure some more stuff here, but we don't need to because everything is already pre-configured. So yes. Now the last step for us is to configure this space. There are multiple options, either automatically configure partitioning or do it ourselves. I will show you how I do it normally. So I use this option that I will configure the partitioning, and I click done. It will ask me to create partitions. Now there are still options available to create them automatically or select one of these like standard or BTRFS or LVM. For this, let's use standard partition, and we will first define the boot partition around 500 MB, or let's make it 600. Add a mount point. Then we define the swap partition. Since we define 2 GB of memory, uh, we can define if we want around 4 GB, but still it doesn't, we will not be using that much. So by the rule of thumb, it's like twice of the RAM. Uh, but in our case, since we are not using, we'll be not deploying such application, we will use different sort of machine for that purpose. So let's give it 2 GB. So we have that one. Now the last is the root partition. For that, I will not define any desired capacity and click add mount point. What it will do is that all the remaining space which the installer had will automatically get allocated here, and I don't need to do anything. So this is really helpful and a good way to use all the available space. Now you can see that only some kilobytes of space is available, or almost 1 MB. Now, one thing more I would do is to select the partition file system type. It is ext4. I normally use it. I feel like it is very stable. You can select anyone you want, depends on your selection or experience. Um, it's totally fine. Click done. Now it asks me to confirm the changes. We can see our partition type here as well. Looks good. Accept changes and click begin install. While this installer is running and installing some packages, we can set up the root password. You have to press done twice to make it confirm. And now we have a root password set up. Now we wait for the installer to get finished, and we will continue later. Now the installation has been finished, and it shows that CentOS is now successfully installed. We have to click the reboot to exit the installer and load our operating system. It's rebooting now. And here you can see that it is now giving us the option to load the CentOS OS. We select and press enter. And here we can finally see the login prompt. So we type our login as root, and we can log in as root user. We can also use the VBox user as well. So yeah. So now we have installed a VM. We will use this VM in our next upcoming session where we install Grafana and see how to install with various options available and configure them. Um, I hope this session was really helpful for all of you, and thank you again, and I will see you in the next video. Take care. Goodbye.